Germans, a bloodline that was now under threat by the verminous Jewish race. And this idea was broadly disseminated by the Nazi state through publicity campaigns and architecture and education and radio broadcasts. Adolf Hitler personally oversaw the purchase of the discus thrower statue for 5 million Reichsmarks. And of course, you can see this in Olympia, the desire to tie the German people to the epic history of ancient Greece, to embody with German flesh the ideal of Greek sculpture. The 1936 Olympics were the first time the Olympic torch was brought to a host city. Joseph Goebbels loved the idea, and it was done to perform this kind of connection between the ancient world and the Third Reich. The body of the movie itself, well, it's a depiction of the Olympics. Obviously, the film serves as propaganda in the way the Olympics always do. It shows German power and industry and wealth and artistic prowess to the world, but the games themselves, they feel normal. Jesse Owens, the black American athlete who dominated his races, is treated with the same kind of valor that anyone else is. But even here, I think it makes sense to interrogate what's going on a little bit. The Olympics can easily be appropriated as a celebration of racial difference and nationalism. It is, after all, an area where ethnicity is contested and performed and made physical. As two black athletes sweep up in their race, we can hear the announcer telling us the stakes of this battle. Who will win? Who is better here, the white race or the black? This is not to say that the Olympics are inherently Nazi-esque, but that the logic of the Olympics can dovetail quite nicely with that of the Nazis. That the background customs of our culture can be used to serve heinous ideological ends. So Olympia is not propaganda because it does disgusting things, advances the worst aspects of Nazi ideology. No, it's propaganda because it does things, communicates things that benefit the Third Reich. Okay, let's take a step back from Olympia and ask a question. Can we perform this same kind of exercise on the Leo and Layla video about MLK? And the answer is, yeah. We can. For example, we can point out that MLK is never allowed to present a solution. Like, he talks about how even after the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Act, there's still more work that needs to be done.
Since you got those laws passed, why do you still need to be out here giving speeches?
Because in the years since, I've learned that there is much work that still needs to be done. There is far more injustice in the world than I once even realized.
But what work? What needs to be done? What is the nature of this racism, and how do we fix it? Looking at the way we generally teach King to children, this isn't strange at all. Most of the celebration surrounding him for kids is oriented around his I Have a Dream speech.
Oh, tell us about the I Have a Dream speech.
And that speech, while beautiful and important, doesn't tell us specific actions to take to make those dreams reality. Rather, it is unifying and general and personal. But when PragerU eliminates discussion of MLK's politics, it's different. It's different because they hate his politics, his anti-capitalism, his belief in redistribution and reparations. Society at large ignores King's beliefs, and PragerU uses this fact to hide their disdain for him. Or we could look at the framing device for the episode. Layla stood up for a disabled kid, went to Martin Luther King, and talked about standing up for people. Then she goes back to her time, and the problem with that disabled kid is solved.
And all my friends said they were sorry to Haley and asked her if they can help with a fundraiser. We start this weekend.
Oh, right!
The bullies simply realize their error and change. In one notable line, Leia mentions that they're even building a wider hallway in the school that wheelchair users can access.
We're gonna need a fundraiser that will add space to the areas of the school where it's a tough fit for Haley's wheelchair.
That's kind of odd, right? Like, from Leia's perspective, everything here works out so easily. She stands up to the bullies, and the bullies stop bullying, and they all decide to make an important structural change to the school's treatment of disabled people. This kind of story, while not on its face offensive, is perfectly tuned to the narrative that PragerU wants to tell. In the video, there is no mention of racism in our current society, no stated end to MLK's story, and that makes sense. PragerU wants us to believe that King broadly solved racism, solved it in the way that Leia solved ableism. PragerU uses King, quite literally, to deflect from any claim of current racial injustice, so it's only reasonable that they tell a story where injustice is quite easy to solve. You might have an issue with the sort of analysis I'm doing here. Look, you might think, you can talk about the importance of context all you want, but really, none of this matters that much. It's not all that offensive to talk about what King said and did without thinking about his politics. It happens all the time. And it's certainly not offensive to use King as a positive role model who stood up to injustice. At the end of the day, you comment, you're just finding problems where they don't exist. And I gotta admit, you have a point. That is kind of what I'm doing. But the problem is, I think that you, this hypothetical person in my audience, are going about this process of analysis in the wrong way. It's tempting when we look at bad conservative propaganda to look for issues, things to take offense at. God knows I do that all the time. But in some cases, that mode of thinking is just not all that helpful. The question that we need to ask is not, is this Leo and Layla video problematic? No, the question here, very similar to the question we asked of Olympia, is does this work do something that benefits the project of PragerU? Does it communicate something PragerU wants to communicate? And the answer is yes. Sure, this Leo and Layla video could have been evil in the way their other MLK videos are evil. It could have lied about the man's politics, claimed that we betrayed the message of King, whined about how we still talk about racism in 2023. But that, I think, would have been counterproductive. Invited into this video a dissenting opinion, told the audience that some people disagree with their conclusions about justice and oppression and MLK. This is a video for children. They don't need to prove their point or argue with the opposition. All they need to do is produce a version of Martin Luther King that does not confront conservative ideology, that does not challenge the lies that PragerU tells about him. And so, they produced it. Okay, I want to talk now about two videos on the PragerU Kids channel called How to Embrace Your Femininity and How to Embrace Your Masculinity. Notably, these are not Leo and Layla cartoons, but instead live-action listicles with a BuzzFeed energy. So, on first pass, these videos are quite predictable. For boys, they say to be strong.
It means becoming a strong person.
Be financially independent, have integrity, etc. For girls, they say a lot of misogynistic nonsense. Smile more, make a beautiful home, try not to get the wrong kind of attention from men, don't be aggressive, and so on.
One of the most beautiful things God has created is a woman's smile.
But there's one thing in these videos that just caught me off guard, and it's the first tip that PragerU gives in their femininity video.
Don't get caught up in stereotypes. In today's age, it's a big question what a woman should look like, or what a woman even is for that matter. And people are running away from gender stereotypes as far as possible.
Don't worry too much about stereotypes, they say. If you want to wear pink or wear high heels or, and here's an idea, be a housewife and mom, you should do that.
Embrace the idea of being a wife or a mother.
Now, looking at this clip, we can of course point to the naked dishonesty of what PragerU is doing here. They say to not care about stereotypes, but within the actual video, they only mean don't care about not embracing stereotypes. It's actually really cool and epic to be a traditional woman. In other words, they want women to care about stereotypes. They're obviously directing them to fill a conservative social role, and everything else is just equivocal fluff. But that's the thing, right? That's what catches me off guard. Why is PragerU, this extremely conservative YouTube channel, equivocating? Why do they feel uncomfortable just saying outright that being feminine is good and that what femininity means is being a wife and mother? Why are they treating this issue with such unusual restraint? Well, I think that's for two reasons, and they both kind of fascinate me. The first is, I just enjoy moments where PragerU implicitly acknowledges that its politics are awful and that nobody actually likes them. For boys, all their advice is extremely affirmative. They give a series of uncomplicated things a man should be and leave it at that. This is because the position they give men in society is gratifying and sounds nice. Masculinity to them is about having power.
Be independent, financially and mentally.
But for girls, it has to be different. Their role is to be subjugated by power, to be docile and passive and run a home and make it pretty.
Make your house a home, and along the way, stay grateful and encouraging.
This is horrible. It goes directly against basic social ideals like fairness and equality, and does so in a way that most people would find appalling. So when it comes time to describe femininity, they have to approach it differently. We're not telling you that women belong in the kitchen, we're telling you you should be in the kitchen if you want to be. It's really your choice.
So don't let anyone tell you it's bad to fit stereotypes. Those people are just trying too hard to be cool.
No, it's really just vapid waffling that sells their obvious misogyny without having to name it, and I find that kind of funny to watch. The second reason I find this moment interesting is that it is, on its face, gibberish. The video is called How to Embrace Femininity. Its purpose is to tell girls what to do, how to live up to a feminine ideal. But the advice, don't care about stereotypes, does no such thing. To not care about stereotypes provides girls no guidance on how to be or what attitudes they should have. It cannot be feminine to simply do whatever you want, because femininity must describe a way women should be in order to be a socially actionable concept. But see, I think that's kind of the point. Women must be subjugated. They should be raised in repressive, conservative environments, educated to be chaste and virginal, provided fewer job opportunities, told they should only live for their husbands and children, given no access to their reproductive organs, etc. But all this must, at every moment, appear natural. Don't worry about gender roles. Don't concern yourself with what society wants you to be. If you simply lean into your own womanly instincts, your service to men will come about organically. For the project of authoritarianism to be complete, it must be understood, ultimately, as the only way things could have ever been. And so, the paradoxical statement comes to make sense. To embrace femininity is to pretend that it does not exist. So that section about femininity, it was actually surprisingly hard to write. I had two separate finished drafts about it where I talked for way too long about a ContraPoints video before I realized that none of it was actually really about PragerU. And this is what I like so much about my streaming service Nebula. Every month I release a little bonus video there. I have a ton up there now that I'll flash on the screen, and this month it's about that, about masculinity and PragerU and ContraPoints, I guess. Nebula comes with a lot of great stuff too. Lindy exclusively releases videos on there, and I actually have a cameo in the next one. PhilosophyTube has her play there, and there are just a ton of creators working on the platform. The whole thing costs $3 for the full year, which I think is a pretty good price, and it seems from my perspective that the people who sign up through me are happy with it. So if you're interested, sign up now at the link in the description and watch me waffle about masculinity for way too long. Okay, so that's the end of the video. I hope you liked it, and if you did, feel free to like, comment,